Okay, welcome again to Go, a 40-day journey to the never reached. We've been discussing these different Go imperatives, and today we are going to talk about going together or go together. I've got a pretty amazing scripture that we're going to read here. Interesting scripture. We're going to have to dive a little bit deep into it, but for sure we got a lot of interesting devotionals related to this concept of go together. So I'm reading to you from John chapter 21 and in verses 1 through 3. I'm reading again the ESV, and it says, "After Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way, Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, 'I am going fishing.' They said to him, 'We will go with you.' They went out, got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing." So, going together here is not, let's say, as clear as an imperative as we've gotten some of the others. And yet, all of a sudden, you get this list of names of people, and they actually go out and go together. Now, it's probably noted that they didn't catch anything.
See, this is my favorite one.
Yeah.
I love it because Peter says, "Let's go fishing."
Yeah.
I don't like how it ends.
Yeah,
they caught nothing. My idea of a good day fishing.
I've fished in so of you, we like it when we actually catch
that's
something.
Right. I don't like to be skunked, right?
That's what we call it.
Yeah,
right.
but there's just this is an amazing story. It brings out something that a lot of people don't realize about these 40 days.
Yeah.
So most people's assumption about these 40 days is that Jesus was with the disciples every day.
Right, that's right.
But in the reality, that's not true.
No.
A little bit earlier in this story, in the book of John, John says, "And 8 days later, he appeared to them again."
It was like he just popped in and just showed up and made these appearances, right?
You know, we've got we know how the story goes. It makes sense to us. Yeah. They didn't have all that context to go on. Jesus is here, then he walks through the door and he's gone. Not like opens the door and walks through. He walks through the door and is gone. Where did he go? How do you find him? Will he come back? What is this going to look like? They didn't know. The disciples have been on this roller coaster ride of emotions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, all right. They go at Palm Sunday. They're going into Jerusalem. Jesus says, "Go get that colt over there." They heard Zechariah's prophecy. "Look, Jerusalem, here comes your king riding on the colt of a donkey." They got super excited. That's why they threw their coats in the ground, right? This is the day Jesus is going to become king.
This is it. Yeah.
That's right. But instead, it was a nothing week where instead of becoming king, Jesus makes people mad at him and he's crucified.
Right.
And so they've gone from through the roof to in the basement, and then Mary shows up and says, he's not in the tomb.
Right.
I mean, and then Jesus walks in the room.
Yeah.
And so they really have just been all over the place, but then there's these blank spots.
Yeah.
These days where Jesus is not there. And it's in those moments Peter really gets discouraged.
Yeah.
And Peter is not saying here, let's go have a relaxing day fishing.
Right.
Peter is saying, I'm done following the Messiah.
Right.
I'm done with this political business. I am now going back to the family business. Yeah. And think of how Thomas could have reacted.
Right, the doubter, right?
Yeah. You said I doubted.
Yeah.
I had to touch his hand, but what about you now? You're going fishing. Yeah. But what's so powerful is the response, "We will go with you."
Yeah.
And they really...
In other words, the other disciples saying to Peter, "We'll go with you."
That's right.
We'll go together,
That's
so
right.
to speak.
That's right. And they set a precedent.
Yeah.
And then from that point forward, that's what Christians do, is go together.
You know, and it's interesting that not everybody that went were fishermen.
Right.
Like by trade is what I mean.
Right.
And so, they went together, and yet some of these guys were not all necessarily, obviously James and John were and Peter was, but not all of them were fishermen.
Yeah.
But they went together anyway.
Yeah.
Gifts that weren't necessarily fishing gifts.
Yeah, and it's sometimes the response that we have then when we start talking about ministry or church work or even life is, it's just easier to do this myself.
Yeah. I think we all have that feeling at one time or another, is involving other people is just makes it too difficult.
Yeah.
So let's talk about life together then, because I'm sure as people are watching us here and interacting in, their cell group, their home group, when we start talking about we don't always get along, people might even be elbowing each other and saying, boy, isn't that the truth,
Right.
So doing life together and doing Christianity together is wonderful, and yet, boy, it has its challenges.
It is really messy, and that's one of the devotionals. And again, it's an anonymous contributor, but she talks about that scripture in Proverbs. Where there's no ox, the stable's clean.
Yeah.
But it takes a strong ox to bring in
Right.
a plentiful harvest,
Right.
right? And it does get messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every once in a while, we have to stop. Yeah.
Let me read the quote. It says, "From time to time, we'll have to clear out the mess created by going together." So apparently going together creates that mess.
It
So,
does.
yeah,
It does create mess. And we need to be committed as believers to not abandon one another when the mess happens.
Yeah.
That's our tendency as Americans, really.
Yeah. People have other places, it's like we can just change churches.
We can.
We can pick a different life group or cell group. And of course, you may be watching this in a cell group, so I didn't just suggest that to you either.
No, but I mean that's our reaction. But
it is sometimes.
But the thing that like Brandon Powell points out in his devotional Giants is that community is a gift from God.
Yeah.
God called us to go together.
Brian, talk now just for a minute about, what do we accomplish? Like, why do we do it? I get the community side of it. Mm-hmm. There's probably this aspect of, I've always said discipleship, then it needs to be done in community. It needs to be done in like real life settings. That's what changes our character. And yet, let's talk about the accomplishment side of together. So, I think there was some talk about that. Let me quote you. You wrote, "None of us can fulfill Christ's mission alone, but together we can change the destiny of nations."
Right. And I was building off of a story there from the Solomon Islands. I don't necessarily want to repeat it. You can read the devotional. But
sure, but give us a recap. Maybe.
Yeah, just two Marines in a situation outnumbered 10-1. No way they could win the battle.
Right.
Impossible. One of them, a hand grenade fall in their foxhole. One's blinded. One has his thumb severed off. Their job is to work a machine gun. 5 hours, unrelieved. These two Marines. One, the blind man fires the machine gun.
Right.
The lame man tells him where to fire.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. In missions, we started in Vanuatu really alone.
Yeah.
We were by ourselves. Over time, we were able to build a team.
Yeah.
You know that a while back, I faced a personal crisis with my father passing.
Yeah, sure.
One of the most meaningful things to me was as I sat there beside my father, as he's in the last hours of life, my phone just keeps dinging with teammates. Yeah, they're praying for me. Yeah, they're thinking about me, but they're also saying, hey, that water well we were working on in this village went in. Yeah. Hey, this church plant, we had our first service. Yeah. Hey, this, and so the work just began to multiply in my absence. And that's the beauty of us being together, is we're going to accomplish so much more together than we can alone.
Yeah. When I said in the beginning of our talk today too, I said, as Peter said, let's go. Well, they said, we'll go with you. We're going to go together and do this thing. Even the non-fishermen were involved. I think it does also speak to me and say that a lot of times everybody brings these unique gifts to this together aspect. I think what happens sometimes is we oftentimes don't appreciate other people's gifts. We kind of look at our own gifts as being the best gift or whatever, and we don't appreciate other people's gifts. And so I think as we discuss this now in the group, and you've got some questions to discuss and talk about going together as a group, as you're studying this as a group, how can you more effectively go together as a group? How can you more effectively do discipleship as a group? How can you more effectively win the people around you to Christ as a group? So we're glad that you're joining us for this journey to the never reached, this 40-day journey to the never reached. And so our word of encouragement for you tonight or today is go together. God bless you.